So the great 20th century American preacher in New York City, Harry Emerson Fosdick, once said tongue-in-cheek that most Christians go to church on Sunday with one pressing question on their mind. Whatever happened to the Jebusites? And I'm guessing most of you came to Shabbat service today with two pressing questions from the Torah readings. First question, why must every sacrifice be salted? And second, why must we sacrifice the protuberance of the liver? And if you came seeking answers to those questions, I will not be providing them. On a more serious note, I do consider this to be a very great honor and privilege to be invited to your pulpit. I look forward to it each year. Thank you, Rabbi, for the invitation, but thank you for your hospitality as a synagogue. I know this has been mutually edifying for my congregation at Irvington Presbyterian. I hope it is for you as well. But to be able to come together as two different faiths to share in worship and prayer together is a great gift to me. So thank you for allowing me to be here today. In an essay published in 1951, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel described the world in the following way. And I think the quote is worth reading in its entirety, so stay with me. One of the maladies of our time is shattered confidence in human nature. We are inclined to believe that the world is a pandemonium, that there is no sense in virtue, no import to integrity, that we only graft goodness upon selfishness and relish self-indulgence in all values, that we cannot but violate truth with evasion. Honesty is held to be wishful thinking, purity, the squaring of the circle of human nature. This hysteria of suspicion has made us unreliable to ourselves, trusting neither our aspirations nor our convictions. Suspiciousness is the beginning of our thinking. This sneering doctrine holds many of us in its spell. It has profoundly affected the character and life of modern man. As I read this, the diagnosis of society rings all the more true 75 years later. And so the question is, what do we do? What do we do with our shattered sense of confidence? How do we live in pandemonium? How do we not become ensnared in the hysteria of suspicion? We could choose to retreat. Individualism as a life philosophy has always been strong in our nation. Look out for yourself and no one else. Trust no one other than yourself. And of course, as you'll hear at just about every commencement speech, to thine own self be true. But individualism as a life philosophy ultimately isolates. It changes not our perspective of human nature, nor does it reduce the suspicion fueling much of our polarization in society today. Even before the global health pandemic, health experts were noting how much loneliness impacts health, to the degree that the United Kingdom actually appointed a minister of loneliness as a government position to address the crisis. Or note another effect. I read something recently about intermarriage across political parties. Around the time when Heschel wrote his essay in 1951, something like 5% of Americans were deeply concerned if their child married someone of the opposite political party. That number today is between 35 and 45% of Americans. We are setting up the next generation for an even more divided and polarized future. As we retreat into individualism while appealing, it will ultimately not lead us out of this mess. So instead of retreat, we could choose to pursue reward. Yes, we tell ourselves this is a competitive marketplace in which morality gets eaten alive. So privately, let us attempt to be morally good persons, especially on the Sabbath. But professionally, let's join the crowd. Let's go along to get along. We're going to try to earn every dollar we can. We're going to consume every new product as soon as it's released in the market. We're going to visit every possible location across the globe, and we're going to imbibe in every new experience we can. You will seize the day, making the most of every moment, squeezing every ounce of pleasure and delight that you can out of life. But once again, this doesn't address the issue. The shattered sense and confidence in human nature is left untouched, or possibly worse, it is simply left disguised as confidence in progress or technology or the markets, none of which really bespeaks of confidence in the moral nature of humanity. Again, we as humans are left to our own devices, conceived in suspicion and selfishness, and our lives then become directed to retreat or reward. So what might be another way for us to live and move and have our being? How might our specific religious traditions and practices of faith reorient us to a better way of living in a world of pandemonium, which in turn might lead to the healing of the world? Instead of retreat or reward, we could choose relationship. Or more specifically to our end for today, we can and we should choose friendship. I want to explore two types of friendship with you today, somewhat theoretical but also, I hope, practical. Because on the surface, friendship seems like a trite response to the cries rising up from God's children around the world. And yet, in a world in which we so often feel like we have little to no control over anything that unfolds in national or global politics, maybe it is in starting with what is closest to us that we can respond to God in faith. So the first friendship is friendship with God. In the book of Exodus, we are told that when Moses went to the tent outside of the camp, the Lord would speak to Moses, and a few verses later, more commentary is added on these conversations. The Lord used to speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend. Moses as a friend of God. Now, this friendship with God was not the universal experience of the ancient Israelites, but Moses as mediator enjoyed the intimacy of a friendship with God. Now, in the Christian Bible, Jesus will pick up this same language of friendship while celebrating Passover with his disciples. And here's how the Gospel of John records Jesus' words from that evening. "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants or slaves any longer, but I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father in heaven. You did not choose me, but I chose you." The declaration of Jesus, saying to his followers that they are no longer servants or slaves, but now friends, completely transforms the metaphor of relationship that we often conceive of with our higher being. If we return to Heschel for a moment, he also expresses something similar, not in the language of friendship, but in this language of the interest of God. Religion, he says, is the interest of God in man, in humanity, in God's covenant with the universe. Our task is to concur with God's interest, to live in accordance with God's vision of man. Or, in another part of his writings, the decisive event in the spiritual history of our people was the act that occurred at Sinai. It had a twofold significance. One, in opening up a new relationship with God to man, in engaging him intimately to the people of Israel. And second, in Israel's accepting that relationship and that engagement to God. Embedded in creation, enacted in covenant, and realized in redemption, God befriends us as human beings. Like your rabbi, who might have been falling asleep there. I teach religion over at Mercy, and often when teaching, I seek to try to find the ways in which the world religions are similar, but also the ways in which they are unique and stand apart from one another. And I think a unique quality that our two faiths share, of Judaism and Christianity, is the depiction of a God who befriends humanity. A God who enters into intimate relationship with humanity as a friend talks to another face to face. Both religions depict God as a God who chooses to involve himself in the hysteria and pandemonium of the world. A God who is not aloof from our cries, but near to them. A God who is not stoic and disinterested in the concerns of the world, but passionate. And a God who isn't just retreating into heaven, but instead abounding and overflowing in steadfast love. In our faiths, the depiction of the God that we have is a God who chooses not to retreat and stay up in the heavens, nor do we worship a God who chooses reward, much like the Greek gods pursuing their own pleasures. Instead, the God whom we worship chooses relationship, chooses friendship with us. God sets the terms of our world for us. We don't get to choose the world, we didn't get to create the world, and we're not going to be the ones who save the world. God makes the world for us. And this is the world that we then get to choose to live in. A world in which God befriends us, in which God befriends the world. So that brings us to the second type of friendship, and that's friendship with one another, with our fellow human beings. Christian theologian and ethicist Paul Waddell, he defines friendship in this way. Again, a little bit longer of a quote here, stick with me. True friendships are not relationships we control, but adventures we enter into. Friendship is more surrender than conquest, more a loss of control than a calculated plan. Friendship is a matter of mutual affection, of reciprocal love, care, and concern. It is also a matter of shared vision, similar beliefs and convictions. Every friendship is a journey that changes us over time, shaping our character, forming our habits, cultivating in us attitudes and dispositions that stand as an inventory of the relationships we have had and the effects they have had on us. As we can see in this understanding of friendship, we're not speaking of friends like we would of an acquaintance that we might watch March Madness with. But we're speaking about more of the person who stands right beside you in the worst and darkest days of your life. It's been said that you know who your true friends are when your life falls apart. And if we've been in those places, or when you are in those places, you will find that to be true. Waddell will go on to talk about these different gifts that we mutually share in relationships. He says that friends teach us how to care for other people. He said that friends teach us about ourselves. He says that good friends teach us to stay committed to our most important goals, projects, commitments that we've made in life. It's in friendship that we learn goodness and virtue. And it's in friendship that we learn to live more hopefully and more truthfully. And I hope and pray that you have at least one person in your life that shares these gifts of friendship with you. And I hope you have many more. When we return to Jesus' words, after hearing this exposition of friendship from Waddell, Jesus says, just as I have loved you, you ought to love one another. And if we were to change it just slightly, we might read it as, just as I have befriended you, you ought to befriend one another. In our suspicious, driven, individualistic, and competitive society, friendship too often receives the leftovers of our emotional capacity. In so doing, we fall further into the pits of retreat and reward. We get off the train on Friday afternoon or evening, and the only thing that we can imagine doing is sitting on the couch by ourselves that evening, not having to talk or interact with anyone else. Or we might get off the train and think about all the things that we need to do this weekend to soothe and care for ourselves. But friendship turns self-love into other love. Yes, do your self-care, commit the time and energy and emotion to friendship. But friendship isn't networking. It doesn't necessarily help you advance in your career. And friendship isn't merely ticking a box of relationality so that no man is an island and the recognition that it is not good for one to be alone. Friendship is a journey through time with another person. And in that journey, both of you are changed by time and you are changed by one another. Again, this is not so distant from our understanding of God's journey through time with us. Friends will be there to comfort you when you mourn. Friends will be there to carry you when you faint. Friends will be there to celebrate you in times of blessing. Friends will be there to mark time on seemingly inconsequential days. The point is that friends will be there. One of the many gifts that houses of worship provide is this gift of friendship. You move to a new community, a new neighborhood. What's the best and fastest way to connect with people? You go to your house of worship. Synagogues, and temples, and churches, we are befriending communities. Places where people can feel welcomed and included, seen for who they are, and invited to share their gifts with one another. We are people who share vision and belief and convictions, and we are people who learn and practice loving and caring for one another in the ups of life, naming a child, and in the downslopes of life, grieving the loss of a loved one. It's in our religious communities that we are also most likely to come up against the annoyance of others and the frustrations of friendship and the messiness of attempting to be humans together. If we journey with people over time, we will need to learn to forgive more often than we hurt. We will need to express more gratitude than offer complaints. And we will need to grant charity and hospitality more often than we retreat into ourselves. I'm not saying that this is easy. I've been a pastor for 15 years, and I've seen the very best of people come out in communities of faith, and I've witnessed the very worst of humanity coming out in communities of faith. But even when ugliness raises its head, we must commit ourselves anew to this shared life of friendship. So, a few takeaways for you today. One, if you have a friend, tell them and thank them for being a friend in your life today. Maybe that person is here, but share how much that person means to you. Let them into that journey of the gratitude, the joy that you experience together. Maybe today, as we go have some treats after service today, maybe you befriend someone that you do not know. Maybe you overcome that discomfort that you might have of, I don't really know that person, or I met that person 3 times and I forgot their name, and now I just feel kind of uncomfortable asking them their name again. Get over yourself. Reintroduce yourself to them, befriend them, and begin to share this journey with them. And nurture this friendship with God. As we enter into a holy season, both of our faiths together, this is a season for us to draw near to the God who has chosen to draw near to us. So take this opportunity as Passover approaches to befriend the God who has chosen to be involved intimately in your life, to know your pain, to hear your suffering, and to respond with mercy and grace. Beloved, we need friendship, and the world needs friendship. And I believe friendship is the gift of God for the people of God.